It's another edition of WRAL Triangle and 2. I'm Mark Bergin. He's Pat Welter. Pat, we got 3 games among the Triangle teams this weekend. We start with UNC hosting Richmond, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. What I want to ask you, and where I want to start today's show, Pat, is what do the Tar Heels need to do in this game in preparation for some tougher opponents down the road?
I would say dominate the line of scrimmage, because that's my concern, right? Through 2 games is that TCU, they obviously didn't dominate the line of scrimmage or really much of anything. But when you go to Charlotte, a team that's, near the bottom of the American Athletic Conference, and you can't control the ball, you only win by 17 points. It's great that you won. Like this isn't a complete dumpster fire as like anything kind of felt like on the table after the TCU disaster. They at least, looked professional and organized and executed to a certain extent. But you'll need to see more. Like that to me looked like a team that's going to struggle with everybody in the ACC, even potentially Stanford. Like anything you had checked off as a win is now completely up in the air.
I do want to ask you about Charlotte. I know you were there with WRAL's Brian Murphy, but keeping it with this Richmond game, there's no line for this game. I was looking everywhere to kind of get a read what to expect. These 2 teams haven't played since 1978. What gives, Pat Welter? Why no line?
I couldn't find it either, and I think there's some incorrect information because I saw it at one place, Carolina -8, and I was like, no, that can't be right. That can't possibly be right. Then I did some more deeper diving, and it was more like 21, and that feels more in line. So UNC was 13.5 over Charlotte, opened as a 20-point favorite, charged all the way down to 13 after the TCU loss. And yeah, I mean, that feels about par, right? Richmond is 1-1. They are an FCS team. They compete in the Patriot League. And how was that for irony, right? Bill Belichick going up against the team in the Patriot League. Like, you can't write this stuff of all the teams that they're going to play. And yeah, they lost to Lehigh 21-14 and had a narrow win against Wofford. So UNC should be a heavy favorite in this game. UNC should dominate this game. That's what you have to do. It's college football.
Let's go back to your point about the line of scrimmage. And I know when Bill Belichick spoke with reporters this week, he was asked about, he's tried a lot of different players at running back. And he said, if I had Jim Brown, I'd play Jim Brown. Do you see any of the specific running backs really taking on the onus and saying, I'm going to be the top guy, a lot like how UNC used, say, Omarion Hampton a year ago? Or do you think we're going to continue to see this committee approach?
I mean, I don't see like an Omarion Hampton.
Well, of course.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, to be perfectly clear.
But another local kid is the one that popped. Damon June, who's from Jacksonville, Florida, who took me a minute to figure out who he was during the game because he hadn't played in the opener. I believe he's a true freshman, and he's out there rocking number 35. And at halftime, I'm editing my video highlights to send in, and I'm like, there's no 35 on the roster. He had changed his number. So he's a freshman. I remember seeing him in some of our high school football highlights from the past here at WRAL, and he was the guy that really popped to me. Now, Davion Goss is the one that scored the touchdown. But again, I don't know if it really matters necessarily who's running the ball if you're not able to clear big running lanes for these running backs against Charlotte.
Well, I know a lot was made in the opener that there was no depth chart provided, and so now we're starting to get a little bit more information of who some of the playmakers, who some of the players are on this team. I know it started out hot in Charlotte with the long touchdown pass Gio Lopez had. What was it like being there in Charlotte? You did get to see a bit of history. I don't know how historic it will be, but Bill Belichick's first college win. What was it like being there at the stadium?
Yeah, I mean, for an 18,000 seat stadium, it's a nice visual. Like, it's a nice campus. It's very new. The stadium is a one lower bowl. So yeah, it is small, but it was filled record numbers, over 19,000 there for them. The students were amped. They were pumped. I mean, we went from the biggest game in Chapel Hill history for football to the biggest game in Charlotte's very humble football history. And, things aren't going great for the Carolina Panthers. Maybe they could use a college football team over on that side of the state. So why not? You got to start somewhere. And after the TCU game, it felt like a loss was on the table for the Tar Heels. You didn't really know what you were going to get. They were so far below expectations going into the season. So there was upset in the air, right? But then the Tar Heels come out, they script the first drive perfectly, and let's give some credit to Gio Lopez. That was an absolute dime. Looking back, I saw it. I had the great camera shot of it came right into my lens, which is what you dream of as a videographer, getting that ball spinning and then dropping right into Chris Culliver. He spins it on the ground. It was an awesome play. But then just like the opener against TCU, the offense really stalled out from there. I think they only had 3 points in the second half. You think when you're playing a team like Charlotte, okay, it might be close in the first half, but then you're going to pull away in the second. That didn't happen. The upset never really felt on the table either, but, Charlotte missed some field goals. They got to the red zone a lot. They moved the ball. They actually had, I think, a minute longer in time of possession. Charlotte was very much in this game. The fans were dying for that sake of the upset, but Carolina, to their credit, at least always kept them at like a stiff arm reach away.
Yeah, we saw how much that line moved in advance of the game, where it was like a 3-touchdown favorite, the Tar Heels were, and then it moved closer to like 2 touchdowns. The Tar Heels defense, though, holding Connor Harrell in check, the former UNC quarterback, the starter for Charlotte. And then we also got to see Grayson Loftus, who used to play at Duke, in that game on Saturday night. But, man, so I was watching, I had it up on my laptop on Saturday night, and I was struggling to stay awake to watch the game just because in the second half,
not much happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it. You can look at this 2 ways, right? You bring in a coach, you got to give them some runway. You got to give them some time. You bring in 70 new players, an all new staff. It's understandable that maybe you would take a step backwards to take a step forward. We just saw Illinois come into town and saw what can happen when a coach like Brett Bielema is able to build a program. But when you hired Bill Belichick, when you invested this much into the football program, I'm willing to give you some degree of patience, but you're not getting what you paid for. Like, this isn't what you signed up for if you're Carolina and you're the donors. Now, did Bill Belichick ever sell us the expectations that they were going to be a playoff contender year one? Did he sell us on high expectations all offseason? No, quite frankly, he probably did the opposite. I think most of us just thought that was Bill Belichick being Bill Belichick, or maybe it was just he actually knew that he didn't have a great roster going in.
Point blank, this game against Richmond has to be a get-right game, because then you go on the road the following week against UCF. That could go either way at this point in time from what we've seen from UNC. Then the following week, hosting Clemson at home, the first weekend in October. Those games right now are looking really, really tough from what we've seen through 2 games with UNC. You've said this before, though, Pat. What Bill Belichick's teams look like at the start of the year compared to the end of the year often are 2 different things. But early on, it's still, even after that Charlotte game, if you're a Tar Heel fan, you've got to be wanting more at this point in time. It's just that you've got to be wanting more, again, for what not just you're paying Belichick, but the entire staff and that entire investment into the football program.
It's just a weird mentality to be in as a fan, I think, watching the team, both and also as a media member covering the team, because this always felt like a short-term fix, right? Like, he's a 73-year-old guy. He's not going to be here forever. Right? Like, this isn't the coach of the future. Is it the coach of the next 5 years? And then you wondered, well, if things were really good, was he just going to bolt to the NFL right away? You never really completely considered what this would be like if he was mediocre or just bad. Because then what do you do? Like, because he's, at least with Mac Brown, the teams were fun to watch. He was friendly with the media, friendly with the donors, friendly with the parents. Obviously, you couldn't stand for things like giving up 70 points to James Madison,
of course,
or getting embarrassed at Boston College. That just wasn't going to live up to the standard, and it shouldn't, given the amount of talent that they came in. But if this is what you're going to get going forward, just kind of like blah football, like, does Bill Belichick realize, like, I don't know if he realizes that in college football, style points do matter. Margin does matter. Rankings do matter. This isn't just we're playing on an equal playing field of 32 teams. A win is a win. A win isn't a win in college football. How you win matters, and how you beat Charlotte, that just spoke to me about more troubling signs to come down the rest of the schedule.
And that's the last point I would make about this with UNC, and it's not to look past this season, but I know then the next point is, well, UNC's got a really talented recruiting class coming in. okay, that's fine. Is he going to be here
Right.
next season? And if he's not, then all of those commitments that you have, are they still there? Whoever the next coach would be. I don't want to look past this season, but I know that's the argument. Well, 70 new players, and then maybe you see what it's like a year from now. Okay, even if you're bringing a talented class, whether it's recruits, transfers, incoming freshmen, it takes time to gel that and to build a program. And so I don't want to look past this season, but that argument too, I don't buy, because that $1 million buyout, as soon as we got to June 1, it was, I am not buying that because I don't know definitively. I can't look you in the eye right now, Pat Welter, and say, oh, I know without a doubt that Bill Belichick will be here for next season as well.
And how do you have those conversations with him, if you need to have them, about improving the staff, about how you invest the money in the roster? Because Mike Lombardi is their GM, had never really been involved in the college game, doesn't necessarily have the best NFL resume. You're paying him a lot of money. His coaching staff is full of his sons, other people's sons, and, quite frankly, guys with some average resumes. And you combine that with, Belichick's staff history in New England. It's just raising a lot of red flags to me. And the recruiting class is number 17th in the country. Well, Mac Brown had classes like that too. 17 in the country. That's middle of the top 25. You've been that before. You're trying to go above that. You're trying to take another step. And so far, I'm not seeing the things that indicate that they will. But I guess I have to give the, quote, greatest coach of all time a little bit of time to learn the college game.
We're 2 games in. We're 2 games in. But the revenue as well, and that's something that we outline with WRAL Investigates as well. So go check that out. Any other thoughts with this? To me, this is a get-right game to make sure when the stiffer competition comes down the road, the fact that we're even talking about UCF a week from now, where if that's a coin flip game, to me, that's not what you signed up for. Yeah, but any other thoughts that when we're talking specifically to UNC Richmond?
No, I agree with you. Yeah, they took a step versus Charlotte. They were much more competent with their execution. They didn't beat themselves. So let's see if they can go out, do that, and dominate the football game. And then that gives you a little bit of hope and some momentum going into the meat of their schedule.
All right. Duke Tulane going down to New Orleans.
Yeah,
and Darian Mensah going up against his former team. 8 o'clock Saturday, ESPN2 on the Deuce. Duke got blown out by Illinois, but I think it's going to be, to me, the storyline is Mensah going up against his former team, and he even admitted as such this week with his availability with reporters, saying it's going to be weird going up against his former team.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great storyline. It's awesome that we had that just by coincidence on the schedule to get this guy in here. And I think we're going to see a much better Duke team. Manny Diaz almost foreshadowed what happened at Illinois. He said that he felt like they were ready for the moment, knew it was a big opportunity, but wanted to see his team play to their character. And it's every coach's nightmare, every fan's nightmare when your team goes out and beats themselves as badly as Duke did. 5 turnovers in that game, many of them in costly areas of the field. Multiple fumbles from Mensah and an interception. Just as Diaz said after that game, we were the architects of our own demise. So they go on the road here at Tulane, and if you lose, they missed a big opportunity there. But if Duke wants to live up to their expectations in their season, they have to win this game. They have to win this game. And they're a 1-point favorite on the road.
See, these lines are crazy because the line that I have when I checked in my notes, Pat, has Tulane favored in this game.
By what, 2.5?
2.5.
I think that was the open, and then it had moved, but it might, when it's that close to zero, a little bit of money can sway it either way, which speaks to people don't necessarily know what to think. When you had,
And Tulane's 2-0 going into this game, too.
Tulane's 2-0, and Duke just was kind of like a sharp team against Illinois, right? They were 2.5-point dog. I know my buddy texted me that morning. He's like, what's up with this? Number 11 Illinois is only a 2.5-point favorite at Duke. And I'm like, well, dude, Duke's really good, I think. They have a great transfer quarterback in Darian Mensah. Yeah, and Illinois, I'm not sure how good they are. Well, Illinois came in, and to their credit, they benefited off 5 turnovers, but they cashed every time in the red zone. Luke Altmaier looked like an NFL backup quarterback to me at a minimum. So, I think people are a little bit shook on their expectations of what Duke is after that 45-19 score.
that goes back to my point about the continuity and bringing in teams, though, because Altmaier, he's a 3-year starter, same coach, same coordinators for both offense and defense. The last 3 years, Illinois is the only Power 4 school that can say that.
Wow.
Same quarterback, coach, and both coordinators. So it's like, to me, I wasn't all that surprised. That game against Illinois shows the importance of hanging on to the football and winning the takeaway battle. So to me, if you're Duke, almost just throw out the tape, because it's like the lesson that you learn is the importance of ball security and the importance of being able to possess the football from an offensive standpoint.
Totally.
I don't know if there's any other huge takeaway that you have in that game if you're a fan of the Blue Devils.
Well, I love Diaz today was talking about how do they prepare for it. Well, okay, we're going to start practicing taking punts in the sun. You know what I mean? To avoid the muff punt that they had early in the game. And he explained the Mensah fumbles. He said, well, you know what? You can't hit the quarterback in fall camp. So Mensah wasn't fully warmed up to the idea of taking hits like that in the open field. And you see it all. We just saw it with Bryce Young over the weekend. You see it all the time with quarterbacks in the open field. They just, by their nature, don't have good ball security. So it's always a little scary when they're out in the open field running. And, a Big Ten team, tough defense, Bielema, they're gonna ball hunt those kind of turnovers. That's what great teams do. I mean, that's what Duke did last year. I didn't think they were able to win so many close games. They first forced turnovers. This year, they're -6 in their turnover margin, 0 takeaways. That's an alarming stat through 2 games, and one they need to hopefully have some positive regression on.
Did you have a Duke interview as well that you've got coming up later this week that you wanted to plug, Pat?
Yeah, one of the bright spots in that game was BJ Anthony, who's from Durham, came out with 3 sacks right off the bat, and he was the ACC Defensive Player of the Week. And I was like, I love when this works out like this, because I had just scheduled him for an interview, and I just met him at a Jordan High School game where that's his alma mater. So I was like, perfect. We got a great story. So that's coming out on Friday on TV, and we're also going to put it on this podcast feed as well. So get the people out there some actual interviews to go with our analysis, because they're probably sick of hearing us talk at this point.
Nonsense. Anything else you want to get to with Duke, Tulane before we go to NC State, Wake Forest on Thursday night?
Yeah, there are a couple other storylines in this game, right? Like John Summerall almost could have been the Carolina coach in another world.
Oh, yeah.
He was the guy they
that.
wanted. He was the top choice. And I don't know this for a fact, but reading the tea leaves, it seemed like he probably looked at the field and saw, Carolina's my best bet this year. I'm the hot coach. I could probably be the hot coach again next year too. Let's see if a USC, a Florida, some of these schools we mentioned that Manny Diaz could potentially leave Duke for would be open. He goes back to Tulane after only 1 year and is now hoping to be the hot coach again. Other storyline, their quarterback. Tulane has a real player at quarterback, and the way they got him is a winding road. Jake Retzlaff. If you remember him, he was at BYU, won 11 games for BYU last year, got caught up in a troubling situation. He had to withdraw from the school, was accused in a lawsuit back in May of raping a woman in 2023. Now, Retzlaff denied every allegation, was never legally charged. Lawsuit dismissed in June, and this is one of those unique to BYU things. He did admit in the process that he had premarital sex, which is a violation of their honor code at BYU. He leaves the school, and because of the timing of it, he doesn't even transfer to Tulane. He walks on. So obviously that whole legal situation, you put that in one bucket. You put just the quarterback situation at Tulane in the other. They've kind of weirdly benefited from this, where they got a player that's probably above what they could have had at quarterback, and Jake Retzlaff has this team 2-0.
And you bring in that quarterback filling the void for Mensah, who is now at Duke. It's these storylines a lot of times write themselves, Pat.
One more thing. One of the teams they beat, South Alabama, Gio Lopez's former school. It all comes back around in the triangle.
I want to go back to the point about Summerall, though. I remember when he was one of the names for the UNC job, and in an alternate world, what that could have been potentially at UNC. But if he's able to do what they did a year ago, and I look at the money that Duke is paying Darian Mensah, to say, could we do that all over again? Could you replicate that success that you had as a program a year ago? You get BYU's former quarterback too, and look, they're off to a 2-0 start, and the odds makers don't know which of the two teams should be favored in this game.
It's a Big Ten team, not a good one, but
Power four team, Pat.
Yeah, it's a tough place to go. New Orleans, a lot of voodoo down there, a lot of good food. Hopefully they bring
the gumbo. I tell you what, man. That Cafe Du Monde, I could go on and on and on about the Cajun food down in New Orleans. It's wonderful.
Best work trip I've ever had in my life. One of my first ones here at WRAL was the Final Four between Duke and UNC.
2022.
I don't know if I've ever worked harder and had more fun. We would get done I wouldn't eat dinner, right? So we had to go live at 6. A little quick story time for you. To go live at 6 in every sportscast, and then normally you'd eat dinner. Well, I didn't have time to have a good dinner before having to get ready for the 10 and 11 o'clock sportscast, so I just wouldn't eat. And then we'd go out to eat at midnight, and then Bourbon Street never sleeps. So we're working 9 a.m. to midnight and then going out every night. Just
French Quarter, Canal Street, Bourbon Street, Frenchman Street, and it's just like, you walk down another street, you say you go off Bourbon Street, and then there's another parade with trumpet players and trombone players and a makeshift parade, and it's just part of the fanfare of New Orleans, man.
Best place.
Oh, it's terrific.
I don't know if I want to live there, but best place to cover a game for sure.
To visit. You go there for a few days, and then afterwards it's like, I need to go home and replenish and rest. And it's just, it's a good time. Thursday night, we've got NC State hitting the road. Primetime matchup against Wake Forest, the Wolfpack favored by 7. Pat, it's a bit of, you get the exposure of the national TV game. You've got a shortened week, less time to prepare. Players have less time to recover from the previous week's game. But the Wolfpack are going to try to get some redemption against a Wake Forest team that they lost to a year ago.
Yeah, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for them in a lot of ways, right? They lose 34-30. That's the Grayson McCall game where he gets his second apparent head injury. Obviously, that one was nothing apparent about it. It was clear and obvious and terrifying. And they end up, you get introduced to CJ Bailey. He plays well, but they give up a 30-20 fourth quarter lead. And that's just kind of the story for the season for the Wolfpack, where they just couldn't really seem to execute. Defense struggled all year. CJ Bailey, a young quarterback, and the season just is overall a disappointment. But so far through 2 games, this is a new Wolfpack team where the defense is situationally good, clutch.
Ooh, hang on. This is where I'm going to push back, because your boy was at the game on Saturday. Defense couldn't get off the field, Pat.
This is true.
I'm looking at the third downs. Virginia converted 13 of 19 third down plays. So they would get in third down scenarios, and the PA announcer, the place was going nuts at Carter Finley Stadium. Third down. They couldn't get off the field.
Yeah.
I look at the 514 yards to Virginia, and it might not matter this week against Wake Forest, but it's something that I am noting as a bit of concern, because when you think about Wolfpack football, you think about stout football, ball control, effective running game, really good defense, smash mouth defense. I did not see that against Virginia, and you needed a late-in interception late in that game to escape Virginia. I know NC State rallied back. It was really hot on Saturday.
It was, yeah.
But I don't know. I would expect them to beat Wake Forest. You're a 7-point favorite. I really like what I've seen thus far from CJ Bailey this year in his sophomore year. Hollywood Smothers, I don't have enough good things to say, because he consistently makes the first defender miss, whether it's on a running play, getting into the second and third level of the defense, or if he's catching the ball out of the backfield. They have a really nice tandem there. But defensively, I got to see NC State really shore up, and that starts Thursday night against Wake Forest.
It's a tale of 2 halves kind of game, right? Everything you said about the first half, 1,000%. Second half, they only gave up 7 points, 0 in the fourth quarter. So to my point about situationally good, when it counts, good. At the end versus ECU, they make a 4th down stop. They make clutch interception, Kean Sloan, which, what a play. You were correct about the defense on the whole, but they nailed it with this guy. Utah State transfer.
He was one of the players we mentioned in our preseason pod and the players that we were drafting, Pat. One of the players to watch in the triangle this year.
I didn't know how to say his name then.
Yes.
I've learned now. I'm forgetting. It's Kean Sloan, right?
It's Kean Sloan. It's a different spelling.
But yeah, he makes that play, and that's exactly the look that Virginia wanted. You get a pass rusher in one-on-one coverage on the outside. Incredibly difficult play for that kind of defender to make. He not only makes it, he makes an interception. So, no, you're right. They do need to shore things up more. And Jamari Taylor, the NC Central running back, ran all the heck over them. And everybody else in the area has got to be scratching their head how they weren't able to land this guy in the portal. He was incredible. At least NC State made him look incredible.
Virginia, one time of possession, had the ball for more than 32 minutes in the game. I got to give Dave Dorn credit because he did something in that Virginia game that is kind of unlike how he typically coaches. Late in the fourth quarter on a fourth down conversion, bringing in the backup quarterback in a wildcat package and picking up the yardage that you need in a short yardage situation on fourth down to milk more clock. That was a huge play in the game, and that's something where you keep your offense on the field, your defense off of it, and you milk more clock when that was as big an opponent as, okay, Virginia trying to go back down and get the game-winning score. I got to give Dave Dorn credit of not just having the fortitude to make the call and to be aggressive, but also to execute and to get the personnel on the play call of exactly what you needed to be able to convert there. I thought that was a huge play in Saturday's game.
And if you're a Wolfpack fan, you're thinking, oh my gosh, he's changed, right? He's a new Dave Doran. But then hearing him rationalize it out, I'm thinking, he hasn't changed at all. That was actually a very Dave Doran decision in a weird way. His rationale on it was, A, their punt returner had been killing them.
One of the best punt returners in the ACC, mind you, but yes.
So there was A, that. There was B, they thought that even if they didn't get it and Virginia scored, they could get the ball back and then they could still score. Not everybody, coach, plays that way. So it was interesting just to hear him rationalize it out a little bit. But yeah, a great call. And they don't seem like your typical Dave Doran team, right? The offense is as exciting as I've ever seen it, at least in that Virginia game. It kind of turtled in the ECU one. But yeah, you talked about Hollywood Smothers. CJ Bailey is getting better before our eyes every week. I've heard people compare him to Lamar Jackson before, like some of these other coaches. I'm like, where are you getting that? Just because he has kind of skinny legs? And he's mobile.
I don't get that.
He's not Lamar Jackson. In some ways, he's a little bit. He likes to play from the pocket. But either way, he showed off some great mobility in that game, running for two scores.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns. Hollywood had 2. Hollywood and Raleighwood, man, just
love it.
Print the shirts already, Pat Welter. I really like. I think he runs really, really hard out of the backfield. Something that I think that NC State will continue to need. Now they got to stop this Wake Forest offense. Dave Clawson is no longer the coach. So you don't have the slow mesh reads where you got the RPO, which you saw with Dave Clawson. Now, is it Jake Dickert, the new coach at Wake Forest, to where Robbie Ashford is your quarterback, who's Robbie Ashford, played for South Carolina a year ago, backing up Lenora Sellers, and then played at Auburn the 2 years before that. So someone who has big-time college football experience, and he's really, really fast. That's something that Dave Dorn talked about in his media availability in advance of this game to say, okay, yet another challenge for NC State as the Wolfpack look to start 3-0 for the first time since the 2022 season.
Yeah, and it's another great running back, Damon Claiborne, who ran all over them last year in that Wake Forest win. Suffered a rib injury week 1 this year, but bounced back with 3 touchdowns versus Western Carolina, scored 3 touchdowns versus NC State last year. So you talk about those defensive concerns. That's going to be here this week. Like, this is your chance to right the ship. You get a short week. It's always got to be scary as a Wolfpack fan if you're riding high, going into a game like this on a short week against a rival on the road. You're just waiting for that other shoe to drop.
I'm here. Defensively, you've got to get off the field on 3rd down. DJ Elliott, I know you're watching. It is okay. You can send a blitz. You're allowed to blitz.
Some pressure would be nice. Hasn't been a lot of that this year.
I saw it, and it would be third down, and Chandler Morris, the Virginia quarterback, was just carving up this defense, and it was like, is this even third down? And he would consistently get his team across the sticks. The bit of concern I have is when it comes to NC State's pass rush, if you're not getting there with 4, you've got to be able to mix it up every now and then, and to be aggressive and to manipulate the offense to where the quarterback can't just sit back in a pocket and carve you up and dice you up, because a veteran quarterback is consistently going to do that, at least from what I saw if Saturday was any indication. Can that get improved upon? Mm-hmm. We'll see Thursday night.
In this game, you start to look at the season on the whole, looking at their remaining schedule. You talk about UNC looking at their remaining schedule and being like, I don't know if any of these are wins. NC State, it's kind of the opposite in a way until you get to the end, where they have a pretty challenging schedule. They've got upcoming, they have Duke, Virginia Tech, Campbell. But then after that, there was no guaranteed wins. At Notre Dame, at Pitt, versus Georgia Tech, at Miami, Florida State's in the top 10. Then you end with UNC, which you'd think would be a win, but who knows what that UNC team's going to look like from there. So if State wants to get to where they want to go to, and they want to live up to the potential that they're showing, that this could be a potentially special season, where you can't get to double-digit wins if you lose at Wake Forest on a Thursday night.
It's that, and then it's blowing a 10-point lead in the second half of the game that was played a year ago. Mm-hmm. Obviously, what happened was so serious with McCall, but the valuable game experience C.J. Bailey has gotten since then, we're now in a world where he has double-digit starts as a quarterback, 2 starts in this season as well, to where he looks comfortable. He looks the part. If we were entering this season, Pat, where this was now his first game experience, how differently his development would be. So, how valuable that's been. And he's been very impressive, in my opinion, through 2 games for the Wolfpack this season.
I think what you're seeing right now with NC State is the talent overall is still, I don't know if average is the right word, but it's not elite, certainly by any means. But you have a future NFL quarterback, you have a future NFL running back, and the plays that they are making individually can elevate NC State to a new level. I mean, we've seen this with, I think UNC went through something similar with Drake May and Amarian Hampton, where the rest of the roster, the defense can be subject at times. But when you've got those kind of playmakers at the 2 most important skill positions on offense, you're going to be in a lot of games, and you're going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah, can elevate you, the rest of the guys around you relative to who you're going up against.
Sure.
So Thursday night, I'm excited for that. And then one other point, too, you mentioned the Duke game and how, the front half of NC State season is a little bit less challenging than, say, the back half. You then get additional time to prepare for Duke.
That's
so
true.
You've got a shortened week this week. Take care of business on Thursday night against Wake Forest. You have more time to prepare for the next game. So, man, the Thursday night games, though, I thought Dave Dorn actually handled this really well this week, saying, of course you love the exposure. Of course you love that for your program, but just getting your body right of having to play from Saturday to Thursday, that quick turnaround. I'm curious if that has any repercussions, because this past Saturday's game, I mentioned the heat. It was so hot out. You couldn't help but wonder, does that have any impact on the players out on the field in terms of cramping, in terms of injuries, hydration, what have you, just because of how hot it was. Shortened week. Football is not a contact sport, folks. It is a collision sport.
Well, to your point, NC State has not had a cupcake yet. Like ECU, they might not be a Power 5 or Power 4 team, but they're a strong American Athletic Conference team and a rival team that came in here and played physical football. Then you had to go play a non-conference ACC game versus Virginia as your second game, and now you've got a true road game on a Thursday night. So, yeah, that's challenging. There might be some physical toll that's happening. We saw the injury report. There's not a lot of big names on it, but that doesn't mean that big names aren't feeling it a little bit. And Wake Forest has played nobody. They played Kennesaw State. They barely beat them, and then they had a much better showing, 42-10 against Western Carolina. So how's it going to work? Is it going to be Wake Forest is the fresher team coming off a game where they found their mojo offensively? And is NC State going to be feeling it a little bit physically on the road on the week? Or is that play and competition going to work in NC State's favor where they're just rolling right now?
Yeah, Wake Forest and NC State between the two schools. I'm looking at this injury report, more than a dozen between the two. Are you going to be there tomorrow night, Pat? I should have asked you that before the pod.
We're going on the road, baby. Chris Lee and I are going on the road.
Winston-Salem.
I was there a couple years ago for who's the quarterback before Brendan Armstrong? I'm drawing a blank on his name. But it was a fun game. It was a shootout, and those are the kind of things you can get in Wake Forest. I was talking to one of our guys behind the scenes here, Wade, and he was like, "Oh, we go to Wake Forest. We always struggle out there." So it could be a game anytime, no matter what the records are.
Devin Leary is the quarterback that you're talking about, Pat. But
these things, you don't have them on your sheet. It's hard to recall sometimes. I'm getting old. I've got 3 kids. Things are just moving out the hard drive these days. Devin Leary, I haven't had to say his name in a little bit. He's out the hard drive.
I want one more Pat Welter sidebar story before you wrap up here. So when you were in Charlotte, you had a late night Waffle House visit.
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
Was that as delightful as it seemed to be? I mean, it's probably the only place that's open that late by the time you're done with all your coverage.
So, yeah, my whole drive home was a mission. I'm not going to say this other restaurant's name because they're not sponsoring us, but I was out for another late night gas station type food. I really like this waffle, bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich that they do. So, yeah, I left that game at 1 a.m. Besides of being a sportscaster that other people don't see, in the rain, like a 16-hour day. And yeah, WRAL offered me a hotel. To be fair to our employer, they're not putting me in harm's way. But to me, I was like, well, I've got to work the next day. I'd rather just get home, ride out the adrenaline. So other drives home like that in the past, I've gotten the heavy eye thing, and maybe you pull over for a little bit, you call a friend. But that bacon, egg, and cheese was keeping me going the whole time, hoping to find this restaurant. But my GPS took me back roads, and I never found this restaurant. It's a very popular one around the state. You might be able to guess what it is. They serve food around the clock. That never comes, and we're like 45 minutes out, and I've got to eat. There's that Waffle House, just in the dark outside like Siler City, maybe. And I'm like, well, this is going to be an adventure. And I pull up in there, and it's everything you could expect. There is a dude sitting at the bar that kind of looks like a guy from the Kitchen of the Bear. Kind of like heavy set, sweaty, tattoos.
Those are my people, Pat. Those are my people. Those are my Chicago people.
Yeah, Chicago people, Western Pennsylvania people where I'm from. And he's just having a ball at 3 a.m. talking to the waitresses. They don't even pay attention to me. At first, I walk in and I sit down and I'm just I need to get out of here as soon as possible. Yeah, they took my order. They didn't have a waffle, bacon, egg, and cheese, but they did have a biscuit, bacon, egg, and cheese. And man, that thing was good.
Oh, man. It got you to where you need to go.
Oh.
And he lived to tell the tale.
I did. I should have stayed just for maybe to have more stories from the restaurant. But just walking in there when you're completely sober and everybody else at that hour is either likely not sober or doesn't have a better place to be. I mean, everybody's got a story at a Waffle House at 3 a.m. I should have asked the guy what his was. I'm casting dispersion on this sweaty gentleman with tattoos, and maybe he had a great reason for being there at 3 a.m.
Oh, so was he working at the restaurant?
No, he was just a patron. Sitting there chatting it up with the waitresses.
You weren't the only one there.
No, there was some other people in the corner. They didn't say a word, but this conversation between this gentleman and the waitresses was quite boisterous. But they did get my order. They cooked it fresh. They cooked it hot. They cooked it good. And I got home safely. And
hey, shout out to Waffle House. Shout out to Waffle House.
Maybe we get a sponsor, Waffle House, because that seems to fit, right? Sportscasters out driving late around the country. Where are you going to eat? Waffle House. They're always open.
He's Pat Welter. I'm Mark Bergin. This has been another edition of WRAL Triangle 2. You won't get stories like that everywhere. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. 5 stars only, Apple and Spotify. Pat, as always, thank you for your time.
And we're going on the road again Thursday night. Might have another story to tell when we come back.
See you then. Till then, take care. So long, everybody.